In this episode, I'm going to share with you one of the most common subconscious limiting beliefs, how it shows up in our life, and how do we acquire this limiting belief. And the limiting belief I'm talking about is I'm not good enough. Now, maybe you've never explicitly said this to yourself, but maybe your actions and your thoughts have said it over and over and over again. And it can be subtle because if you've lived with a subconscious limiting belief for maybe your entire life or most of your life, you may not even realize the things that you're doing on a daily basis that are telling yourself that you're not good enough. Some of the ways this subconscious limiting belief shows up in our lives is through achievement. By feeling like we have to constantly hit goals, get the next big thing to finally prove that we are enough. And you see, that's the thing about when we feel like we're never good enough, that we will spend the rest of our lives trying to prove that we are good enough. But when we only use external means to prove that we're enough, we never ever fill that internal void of feeling like we are not enough. Another way that it often shows up in our lives is people-pleasing tendencies at our own expense. We try to make everybody in our lives happy. We never want to disappoint anyone. We always are the person that's going to fix things, take care of things, maybe stay silent just to keep the peace with that relationship. Maybe we're the ones that never feel like our needs are worth being heard, or others' needs are more important than our own. This is just another way that we show ourselves and validate that same subconscious message that we've carried that I'm not good enough. Another way it can show up in your life is trying to change your external appearance to feel a certain way, maybe to feel worthy. Can't tell you how much this impacted me in my early 20s when I was experiencing an eating disorder. I thought that if I looked a certain way, I would feel a certain way, that would finally prove that I was enough. If I could just get to that perfect ideal image that I had, that would be what I thought was worthy. Again, just another empty trap of trying to change the external environment that will never fill the void of the internal environment. Another way this shows up in our lives is having to be productive all the time, constantly having to do something, making sure everything is done in our house, trying to do the dishes, the laundry, being able to have a whole rap sheet every day of all the things we got done. And then that sense of guilt when we ever rest, ever take a moment for ourselves, where we feel like I have all these things to do. Why am I sitting here right now? Again, you're telling yourself and you're validating that same subconscious belief that you are not good enough. You are not worthy of a rest break. And this is where, again, we continually seek out that feeling that we're good enough by all these things outside of ourselves. Another way we seek out feeling like we're good enough is through external validation. We are always seeking out maybe compliments, or we're just hold on to any bit of praise that anybody says for us. And we feel like we're on top of the world when maybe our boss praises us for something we did, or we're on top of the roster for our numbers, and we feel so good about ourselves. But the minute anybody says anything that's critical, or maybe our numbers are not where they should be, it hits us hard. It hits at your core. And you can just as high as you were when through the praise, you go just as low when you feel like it's not there or it's that criticism. There are so many means that we use to seek out the validation of feeling like we're good enough. But yet all these external means are just ways that we behave because we hold on to the subconscious belief that we're not good enough. And as long as we hold on to that subconscious belief, and as long as we have that subconscious belief that we're not enough, we're going to keep on seeking out things that fill it just a little bit. But just like I said, that internal void will never be filled by the external. And the thing is that the external things that maybe just put a Band-Aid on a bigger problem become addictive. So now we have to achieve more. We have to do more. We have to get the next level at the job. We have to get more money to feel like we're enough. We have to lose more weight to feel like we're enough. We have to get more praise to feel like we're enough. So you're constantly on this rat race of trying to get more to fill that void. And what happens in the process is that we start abandoning ourselves. We abandon ourselves for work. We abandon ourselves for other people and trying to keep them happy. We abandon ourselves in trying to get everything done and be productive. We are just draining ourselves in the process. And so not only now do we hold on to that limiting belief of not being good enough, but now we relinquish the essence of ourselves to try to meet those demands of trying to feel like we are good enough. So it becomes this very vicious cycle that we get stuck in because of the root problem that we have a subconscious belief that we feel like we are not good enough. Now, you may be asking, where do these subconscious beliefs come from? Like, why, if you're someone who feels like maybe you're not good enough, or these examples that I'm giving really resonate with you, why do we have this belief? Where would this come from? Why would we live like this for the rest of our lives, or for a long portion of our lives, when it's just an awful cycle to be in? Now, your subconscious beliefs come from ages 0 to 7 primarily, when you're a child. And they often come from an authority figure in your life. It could be a teacher, it could be a parent, it could be anybody that was a person of influence at that time. Now, think about a child from age 0 to 7. They believe everything. You tell them whatever you want to tell them, they believe it. They can feel it, they can embody it. They believe everything as truth. And that's because their subconscious minds are open and receptive to everything. So any experience you've had from maybe ages 0 to 7 becomes your truth until you reprogram it later in life. So if you can think back, and sometimes in your childhood, what you've experienced or who you've been around, or any authority figure in your childhood, maybe things that maybe your parents did innocently and not in an intention to harm you, but they just did it and it left a lasting impression on you. It could be that your mom always dieted and always had to do the next big exercise program. And so subconsciously, maybe you felt like, I'm not enough unless I try to change my body to tell me that I'm enough. It could be from a teacher. I had this experience with my son just recently, that he was doing this counting project, and you had to count how many little bears there were. And then you fill in these blocks and you have to color the blocks in. Well, he counted, there were 4 bears, he counted 4, did a squiggle up until 4, and was able to get that correctly done. He had a big note on it that said "do," because he didn't color in the blocks completely and fully, even though he counted correctly. So something that maybe is just small for us could be something that really left a lasting impression, that wasn't good enough. And as a child, you may internalize that I'm not good enough. And when you get those messages, even if they're subtle and small, as a child, you can internalize all those to be meaningful to you. And so when we look back on our subconscious messages, we may not know the origin of them, and that's okay. But what's not okay is to live the rest of our lives allowing them to dictate what we do, allowing them to control our behaviors, allowing them to say that we need to be more and have more and do more in order to feel like we're enough. And so if you've ever experienced any of these, it's time to recognize that you are enough. You don't need any more than who you are right now to be enough. You are enough just as you are. And so it may be hard to embody that. Maybe you can hear it, cognitively understand it, but how does it feel to feel that? To absolutely feel like you're enough. And that all comes with retraining your brain. Think about how many years maybe you've lived thinking that you're not enough. I can tell you that I lived most of my life not feeling like I was enough. I would have probably saved thousands of dollars in education by feeling like I was enough. I sought out degrees thinking, oh, I just have to get one more degree and then it'll be enough. Nope, I'll do another degree. It'll be enough. Well, you know what? I did all that and it never filled that void. And this is the trap that we get stuck in. So it's only when we really anchor into ourselves and start to love ourselves, start to treat ourselves more kindly, more compassionately, and give ourselves grace in so many moments in our life, that's when things start to change. When we change our internal world, we change our external worlds. And so if you in this moment feel like maybe you're not enough, and maybe some of this has resonated with you, and maybe you're kind of stuck in that trap, take a moment with yourself, a quiet moment, and just put your hand over your heart, look in the mirror and just say, I love and approve of myself. It may feel so uncomfortable to do that, and that's okay. And it's actually a good sign if it's uncomfortable, because if it's uncomfortable, it's something new for you. It's something you haven't done. It's changing the pattern. And if you just start there, you do that every day, you'll start to notice that things feel just a little bit different. And of course, there are many, many things that you can do on top of that, but that's just a starting point for you if you feel like you're not enough. Think about yourself as a child. Even now, if you want to just hit pause, close your eyes, and visualize yourself as a child. How can you send that child so much love? Maybe as I'm speaking, you think of a moment back in your childhood that really may have been the root of you feeling like you're not enough. Can you go back to that moment? Were you 6? Were you 4? Whatever it is, go back to that moment. Close your eyes and just send love to that little girl or little boy. Send love to them as if you're the parent for yourself, for your younger version of yourself. Send them love. Give them compassion in that moment. It's those little practices that start to rewire your brain, start to reprogram your subconscious mind. And only when you start to reprogram your subconscious mind will your behaviors start to change. Will you not feel anchored into having to do more and be more? And then eventually, when you do this enough, you'll start to realize that you are enough. You'll start to feel like you're enough. And then you will start to behave differently when you're coming from a place of feeling whole and enough. I hope this helps. And I hope that you realize that in this very moment, you are enough.